everybody, and welcome to the Good Stories Podcast. I'm Jody, here again with Steven, and we are rolling into 2026. In so doing, we're being a little ambitious with a story that we both love, but it's a big one, expansive. But we'll get there in a second. First, I want to thank our top new download locations. Like I've said before, it's really hard to tell who's out there and where they're coming from, but I can see new places, which is cool. So our top 5 of those is Spokane, Washington, Melbourne, Australia, Andrews, Texas, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and Dartmouth, Canada. So spanning the globe this week, which is super fun. But thank you to all you people out there listening. I'm always curious how you hear about us. So if you have a minute, you can always send me an email, Steven sees them too, goodstoriespodcast@gmail.com. And just let us know a little bit about you and how you found us. I'd love to hear from you. But we have been through New Year's now. And so, brother, I was curious if you have any podcast-related resolutions, goals, things for the year, things on your mind, anything.
I would like to continue doing episodes that I'm proud of. I would like to continue to make steady quality work, which... yeah, it's hard. I mean, we've joked off, and every time after we finish recording, we look at each other and say, well, maybe this is our first bad one. Because you can't ever really tell when you're
really
done recording. But so far, I'm proud of the work we've done, and I think that's my goal for the upcoming year, is to continue doing quality podcasts.
I mean, it helps that we pick stories we like. They're awesome, the ones we pick. For me, I think it'd be really fun to develop some kind of relationship with a bookseller or a publisher. I mean, we buy a lot of books these days, and I said before, I'm typically a library person. So this is strange to me to buy books, but I write in them, so I can't do library books when prepping for podcasts. So if anybody knows an independent bookseller out there or publisher or something, I think it'd be really fun to have some kind of partnership where we can support a smaller bookstore. I'm a big fan of small bookstores. That is where I try to buy my books when I do. I don't know, some kind of collaboration. So that's kind of a loose thought for the year that I just thought I'd mention here in our first official 2026 episode. But our story today, like I said, it's jumping into a expansive world of fantasy and adventure. We're jumping into The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. Do you remember when you first read these books?
I do. I remember, first of all, when my older brother tried to talk me into reading these books, and I ignored him for many, many years. But then I was actually a military physician stationed overseas, and I was doing a lot of ER shifts, a lot of things overnight in the hospital. And it was a small base I was on, so usually we didn't have a whole lot going on, but you had to be up kind of all night because you never knew what was going to come in. And at that time, I had one of my first Kindles, and I downloaded The Eye of the World, the first of the Wheel of Time books, and my life has never been the same since. I love this series so much. It is hard for me to speak of any series of books with the level of respect and love that I talk about The Lord of the Rings or Narnia. But if I was to pick my third favorite series of books ever, it is this one.
And there are 14. There are 14 long books in this series. So Wheel of Time is a whole world. And yes, today we're going to talk about the first one called The Eye of the World. So before we get too far down the path, the author or anything else, time for a story.
The Wheel of Time is an endless cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth. With every turning of the wheel, new stories grow and old stories repeat themselves. During one turning of the wheel, the great leader Lews Therin Telamon uses the mysterious One Power to combat the Dark Lord and save the world. Simultaneously, the Dark Lord strikes back, tainting the One Power so that all men who use it go mad. Driven insane by this counterstroke, Lews Therin kills everyone he loves and earns the title Kinslayer. This leads to the breaking of the world and the end of the Age of Legends. The wheel turns again, and in a small farming community in a pre-industrial society, 3 village youths, Rand al'Thor, Matrim Cauthon, and Perrin Ibarra, start to see terrifying apparitions. When they are targeted and their village is attacked by monsters, they are saved unexpectedly by a pair of strangers. These are revealed to be an Aes Sedai and her warder. The Aes Sedai wield the one power that caused the breaking, and though the village is grateful for the help, they do not trust the strangers and are skeptical of their motives. However, once she heals Rand's father of a deadly illness, he and his 2 friends leave the village with her. All they know is that they are targets of the Dark Lord, and they plan to resist him. What follows is an epic tale of adventure and discovery as the unlikely group travels through the different lands and cultures, faces myriad dangers, and accepts its role in a great weaving of the Wheel of Time. Ultimately, this leads to a showdown between cosmic forces of good and evil at the legendary Eye of the World.
Well done. It's a big book.
It is a big book. And the cosmos that he works on here is massive. Those who have read Tolkien have some comfort with that. This idea of this huge, sprawling world. But Tolkien did most of that in the background. You can read the Silmarillion, but you don't have to read the Silmarillion to have read The Lord of the Rings. In some ways, it's a little bit like if you were reading through The Lord of the Rings and then he sort of tacks chapters of the Silmarillion into it as exposition. So you get a ton of the background as part of just the one ongoing story he tells over the 14 books.
Yeah, we have talked a little bit about world building in other stories, and this is an entire world. And so while Tolkien's a good parallel, I feel like his is a very deep river. Wheel of Time is a very broad river.
Yes.
Okay, so there's mention of so many cultures and things, and they tie together, which is amazing, and that you could have so many loose ends, and they come together. So we're just doing the first book today. Again, there are 14. This is the start of a whole world. Anything mentioned in this first book, it comes up later.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the side story, there's so many things. It's a lot like a D&D game where it just builds on itself, but then that Robert Jordan, the author, he effectively ties it up. It's very complete for just how broad it is.
Yeah, that's the thing, because in this first book, and the first book as a standalone book is wonderful. It is a complete story in its own right with a beginning, middle, and an end, and you can be satisfied walking away from it. But you can also know that there's this huge scope of history behind it and all sorts of things moving forward. This is not my favorite book in the sequence, but it's great, and it's really where you have to start. As you mentioned, 14 books. That was not the initial plan. Robert Jordan originally planned, I think, to write 10, maybe up to 12. It kind of kept ballooning a little bit. Should we talk about Robert Jordan? Should we talk about his life?
We should a little. I don't think it started with 10. I think it started initially like maybe a trilogy, and it just grew and grew and grew. And yes, and the conclusion is 3 books.
Yeah.
Never get to 14. But yes, Robert Jordan, the author, born James Oliver Rigney Jr., which is a great name. So Robert Jordan's a pen name, though. I like that the J-O-R of his name is part of his last name. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of echoes of names inside of the Wheel of Time. I think he enjoyed kind of playing with them.
I think he did very much. What a well-read man. He had read widely and deeply and loved a great expanse of different kinds of books across cultures, across mythologies, across history. And it comes through strikingly in his books. One of the big things I love about the series is, for a geek like me, it's fun to see how somebody pulls these obscure references and puts them into a story. And then it's a fun excuse to go kind of hunt down some of those references and wonder, well, where did he get that from? And there's usually a place he got that from, which is delightful. He didn't start as a writer, though. And I've got a soft spot for these incredible writers who actually had their training in something else. He originally went to college at Clemson, and he was a football player. He was a lineman back in the day, but then he enlisted in the Army. And one thing you can say about this man is that he was a brave man, and he knew combat. He did 2 tours of duty in Vietnam and was highly decorated. The man won a Distinguished Flying Cross with Oak Leaf Cluster. So the Oak Leaf Cluster means he got more than one. He got a Bronze Star with V and Oak Leaf Cluster. Again, the Oak Leaf Cluster means he got more than one. And the V means that the Bronze Star was not done just in a combat scenario environment, but during actual combat operations. And he got 2 Vietnamese Gallantry Crosses. So, I mean, this man served. his country. He got a nickname while he was out there. They called him the Iceman, which if you're going to be a warrior in the field, that's pretty awesome, right? I mean, that's from Top Gun, right?
I was going to say, was he Iceman before Top Gun came out? He would have been, yeah?
He would have been before. Turns out, though, and it's another thing I love about Robert Jordan, as I understand the man, he hated that nickname. And he actually, when he came back from war, he kind of turned on who that man was. The guy that could do what he could do in combat was not going to be a guy he wanted to be in the civilian world. And I found a quote he gave to somebody regarding basically that guy, the Iceman, and the nickname he hated so much. He says he, quote, strangled that SOB, drove a stake through his heart, and buried him face down under a crossroad outside Saigon before coming home. Because I knew that guy wasn't made to survive in a civilian environment, end quote. The depth of sensitivity he displays there is really incredible. There are so many veterans who never really come back from Saigon, who never really come back from their combat operations. And Robert Jordan, or fairly James Oliver Rigney Jr., was able to identify he did his duty, he did what he had to do, but he knew that wasn't who he wanted to be for the rest of his life. And so he stepped out of it. And props to the man, because so many cannot do that.
So I didn't know anything about him. As is common when I read a book, doing this podcast teaches me way more about the author than I ever knew reading the books. And I've read these several times. You can feel echoes of that burden of war, burden of violence. Like, there's a lot of battle between good and evil inside these books, but the main kids in it don't want to hurt anybody. I mean, our main protagonist that most of this first book is told from, he doesn't want to hurt anybody ever, and yet is called to do these hard things. And so knowing that about the author, I think adds a richness and a depth there. Absolutely. He knew as well as anybody could. He knew.
I think so. When he came back, he ended up going back to school, and he got a BS in physics. So this man was not a literature grad. He was a physics grad. He worked, he got his degree from the Citadel Military College, South Carolina, and he actually worked as a nuclear engineer for the Navy. I mean, so he was a math guy. He was a physicist. Really interesting guy. And then at one point in his life, I think he was recuperating, is the story I read. He was in a hospital and he was reading through books, and he said, basically, I can do better. And then he started to do better. And he wrote a few things before The Wheel of Time. He's actually known for having written quite a few Tarzan stories. Or no, I take that back. Conan stories, which is very, very fun. But then, of course, The Wheel of Time is the big thing that he was known for. He planned this out meticulously. And it's not that didn't evolve and change, but it is incredible to me that there are things in the first book that don't show up again until the 14th book, and it makes sense. Those final 3 books were actually co-written by another writer, Brandon Sanderson, because Robert Jordan died and knew he was going to die. And he did not want the series to be left unfinished. So in consultation with his wife, they basically picked another science fiction fantasy writer that they respected and asked him if he would take on the duty of finishing the work. And I think I will always owe an incredible debt of gratitude to Brandon Sanderson for finishing this work, because I would not be okay if this series did not get finished.
It would have been so close to the end, but there's so much that happens at the end. So it's funny to tease the end when there's no way we could get there. This is a broad world, long book. So much happens in it. But I do think it's important to call out his wife. He was very close with his wife. She helped him with his work. I think she did even editing and things for him. So she was integral after he passed in helping make the series finish.
There are 2 other things about Robert Jordan that I was able to look up. I believe these to be true, and I just think they're interesting about getting behind the mind of the man a little bit. His faith. So he described himself as a high church Episcopalian. He took communion at least once a week, and I find that charming and wonderful. I love that. And the other thing is his political views. He described himself, what he got quoted as, he says, "I am a libertarian monarchist." I don't really know what that means.
No, me neither.
But I think it's fun and totally in keeping with this guy that I respect a lot.
Yeah, he sounds like a great guy, honestly. He passed in 2007, I think, and it seemed like he kind of kept to himself even when his book started to grow. But I read something that says he loved history museums and collecting pipes and tea and fishing and hiking. So kind of a private guy, but man, just amazing what he did.
Agreed.
I think we should start by reading the dedication at the beginning, because I always read the dedication. To Harriet, that's his wife. Heart of my heart, light of my life, forever. Beautiful.
I think the next thing we should read is, we're going to go back to the prologue, but I think we have to start the Wheel of Time with chapter 1 and this first line, because if you get into this series, every one of these chapter 1 starts with this line. The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave its birth comes again. In one age, called the third age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings in the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning. And then he starts the story. And so that concept of this turning wheel, this churning, this no real beginnings or endings, but at the same time, lots of beginnings and endings, is sort of a good thing to keep in your mind as you're reading this work.
There's a lot of metaphors between the wheel and the cycle of things and it happening again, or reflections, and also the pattern. They talk about the pattern and the threads in a pattern and how they're integrated together. And I'm kind of curious what you think about those two metaphors and how they mix and don't mix, because they use them both constantly inside this story.
I enjoy thinking about them because there are multiple other metaphors that also get tacked onto them. And one of the challenges with talking about a book series like this is knowing where to start. Did you ever watch the Stargate SG-1 episodes?
Yes, I did, and they were great.
Do you remember the one where Dan Castellaneta comes on? He's having these dreams put in his head where he's actually seeing what's going on with the SG-1 team. It's the way they can recap a lot of episodes really quickly.
Is he
thinks
just
he's
a
going
normal
crazy.
guy?
Yeah, he's like a barber
or
something. And he's like describing this to his other barber friends and the people that come in. And a lot of people are kind of starting to get grumpy and say, boy, that just sounds complicated. And he gets really offended. And he says, it's not complicated. It's complex.
Yes.
And that's the way I feel about this, because let's be frank, it's really complicated, but it's that complexity that makes it so interesting to someone like me reading it. And so to jump into this, to explain what I think about the wheel and what I think about the weave and what I think about the pattern, I also have to talk about things like age lace and something called Tavaren and something called Tilaran Riyadh, which will come on later, and all these other things. So I'm going to politely sidestep your question for now, but I'm sure it'll come back up as we talk through this.
Consider it an overarching question as we go along, because it's throughout the whole series. But an interesting thing for me doing this will be the funny ways you pronounce things.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if mine are right, but they're how I say them in my head.
There is a right way.
Yeah.
Robert Jordan has pronunciation guides, and I've actually heard him speak about the fact that he listens to his own audiobooks, the people that read them, because it helped him know whether he was making the points he wanted. So there is a right answer on pronunciation, but we've been very clear on this show that even if there's a right answer, I'm not usually going to get it. And not usually going to get it consistently.
We are enthusiastic readers. But I did not memorize the whole, it's not even an encyclopedia, but yeah, there's a listing, a pronunciation index that is fairly complete.
So where this story really starts is the prologue. And the prologue is this snapshot going back to the Age of Legends. So I think the easiest way to move ahead with this is to actually give some background. This background is something you would glean as you read through the story, but having it in your mind as we're talking through the story, I think is going to make all this clearer. So again, there's this concept of the turning of the wheel, that there are different ages that come and go. With that comes things like reincarnation, where the same person can come again in the future. And so that's the first thing to know, is this endless turning of the wheel. The second thing that I think is helpful to know is, let's talk about the one power. The one power is the magical source within the Wheel of Time. In Star Wars, you have the Force. In Patrick Rothfuss, you have the sympathetic magic concept. In just about every high sci-fi or fantasy, especially if there's magic involved, there's some mechanism by which it works. The way the one power works is this conflicting but also complementary two halves. There's a masculine half of a power and there's a feminine half of the power. And these work with and against each other in order to help drive the wheel of time. These are considered the axis, the center that makes that wheel spin. And this is going to become very important. One of the things we learn early on, though, is that certain humans can access this power. Men can access the male half and women can access the female half, and they can use it to basically perform magic, to do incredible things. And the prologue of this book starts with an age where this is taken for granted, where channelers, people who use this power, are at the highest strata of society, and they have reached a level where life is idyllic. They have carved out truly an age of legends, and among them the greatest is Lews Therin Kinslayer. Lews Therin Kinslayer is going to go crazy and kill everyone. That's how he becomes the Kinslayer, and then he is going to kill himself. That male half of the source becomes polluted so that anybody who uses it goes crazy, just like Lews Therin does. And what follows is the breaking of the world, this cataclysmic change where nothing remains the same. Mountains are brought low, new oceans are created, old oceans drain. The world is not the same and humanity barely survives. And then after that, we have these ongoing battles between the Dark Lord, who Lews Therin was fighting against, and humanity. We have the Trolloc Wars as humanity kind of came back up. And then you have this kind of long recovery period, and that's where the meat of the story starts. So there's all this history, all this background that happens beforehand before the actual story starts. And now as we talk about the actual book, I think we should talk just a little bit about the prologue where we get to meet Lews Therin Kinslayer at the moment of his madness. This is the actual act of the kinslaying which just has occurred, and this is where we enter into the scene and meet this man.
It's told perfectly well. I mean, it's just introduced wonderfully where there's this man staggering through this palace that used to be grand, but it's in rubble right now. There's tattered curtains and bodies lying around, but he is crazed and he's calling for his wife, Ilyena, my love, where are you? And he even sees his reflection in the mirror and like his eyes, he's fully insane here. And that is when basically a bad guy.
A bad guy.
There's so many different flavors of bad guy. So the dark one is the ultimate Satan, Shaitan is how they call him, among many other names. But this is a counterpart to this crazy man walking around, clearly his enemy. And he uses that power because the bad guys can channel the power as well. He uses that power to make Lews Therin lucid. Mm-hmm. And the man looks around and realizes that he has murdered everyone he loves, including his wife, including his own children.
Says he screams like a man who knows himself damned. He knows he has done it. He was crazy. He's not really responsible for it, but he did it.
And in this moment, the bad guy in it, frequently the bad guy is not named in this first one. And then there become many flavors of bad guys. That's part of what is so amazing about this book, though, is there's layers of bad, but there's also layers of good. Mm-hmm. There's people who think they're good who are actually perpetuating evil. There are people who want to be good or don't want the burden of being the good guy and everything in between. I mean, the spectrum of good and evil in different flavors. But here, the bad guy, yeah, I prompted you to do this, and we are going to continue this battle forever. Lews Therin kills himself. He draws so much of the power. He basically burns himself out, but in so doing, he creates a mountain.
Yes.
Called Dragon Mount.
Because Lews Therin Kinslayer is the dragon. That is his title as the leaders of the armies of good, the armies of the light. He was the dragon. And so this tomb that he created by drawing too much of the power upon himself and raising this mountain now becomes Dragon Mount and is higher than any other mountain on the world. And it is just this towering volcano that shows up over and over and over and over again in this series. In this prologue is also where we learn about the taint. And this is so important. I've mentioned it already, but I need to clarify this, because if the one power are these two halves, this female and the male half, what happened is that when Lews Therin went to confront the Dark One lashed back. And since Lews Therin used this power, the Dark One was able to foul it, to smear it. And so it talks about like this rancid slick coating on the surface of it. So from then on, in order for any male channeler to access the Saidin, the name of the male side of the true power, he's got to reach through this slimy, slick, gross covering, and that gets into his soul and his body and eventually turns him mad. And so even though Lews Therin was able to conquer the big Dark One and seal him away, by doing so, he forfeited his ability to be able to channel, and he forfeited all men's ability to channel. Interesting, though, this doesn't touch the female half, and this gets explained more, again, as the story unfolds.
But yes, the taint. In my mind, this mountain is just this black, shining thing of twistedness, because the taint is consumed inside of it. But the Dark One here, the bad guy here, basically says, I'll see you again. They're waiting for another turning of the wheel. This is not the last battle, because it keeps coming around. This is a wheel that keeps turning. So Lews Therin is gone, but someone else will come and be the dragon again. But now there's a taint on that. The dragon will, by definition, be a man who can channel this one power, but it's dirty. And not just dirty, but men who can channel are doomed to go mad. So these things now are the stuff of legend. It's been turning and turning that wheel. It's been years and centuries later. The age of legends is just stories told now around campfires or not even campfires, around fires at home. Like you said, this is an older time now, very agricultural. You know, there's sheep herders and farmers that we first meet. This age of legends, they have peaked, and here they are recovering from that still all these centuries later.
But they seem to be doing fine, because we open in this village where people are kind of cranky, but generally like each other, and they're trying to celebrate their great spring festival. This is Beltane. This is the festival that's supposed to happen when the crops are up and the sun is out and it's spring. But that's not really happening this year. It is just cold. The crops aren't up, but these people are tough and they're going to celebrate this anyway. And the opening scene begins with Rand al'Thor, a young man with his father, Tam al'Thor, walking along a cart on the quarry road from their farm to the village. And they're carrying casks of cider and apple brandy to this festival. And that's where it begins.
For the party. So this is a very small town. Rand al'Thor, he's what, 17 years old? He's still a kid in this. He's growing up, but he's still a kid. But every year they come to town for this party. They live on a farm outlying town. They come in, and there's so many small town dynamics here. I will say, if you are a person who gets confused with lots of names, don't worry. The important ones crop up again. I actually had this conversation with someone just recommending the series because there are so many names. There's names of towns. There's names of people that you only meet once. There's names of people in the past. There's, languages and history. I mean, it's a whole world. But it's one of those things you just kind of roll with it, and you definitely get the feeling of it. And yes, the important names come up over and over again.
They'll come again. The wheel turns.
So Rand, he's excited for this party. Strange this spring, though. Usually they have this party in the spring because it's a time of sun and the lambs are coming out. There's all these things happening in this town, and it's springtime.
It's supposed to be, but it's not acting like it.
It's still midwinter. Like, grass isn't growing. Everything feels off and cold, and like winter will not let go.
And even on this walk where they're going with this cart, Tam is holding a spear and Rand is holding a bow. The bows here in this village become legendary. So this is the Two Rivers is the name of the area, and the village they're going to is Emmons Field. The Two Rivers bow is basically like a Welsh yew bow. It's a long bow out of Old English tradition, so it is powerful, and they take pride in their archery skills. But they do it for hunting. This is not a land at war. They are a small town. There aren't other people around. There's a lot of small town bickering and politics, but that's about as far as it goes. But they are still carrying these weapons because it's a weird time. And as they're traveling, Rand thinks he sees someone. He thinks he sees a rider in a black cloak, and it terrifies him. Echoes of Nazgul here, I think, is what I thought about, right? The Black Riders from Lord of the Rings.
And Dementors.
Yes. Two things about this one. One, he senses hatred. A deep and abiding hatred of all life, but of him specifically. And two, this writer doesn't seem to be really reacting with the world in the right way. His cloak doesn't blow in the wind. It doesn't move. And when he turns his head and looks back, the writer is immediately gone, as if it just vanished in a shadow. He freaks out and kind of gives a little yelp.
And his dad asks, are you all right? He's like, there's a rider, a cloaked rider. He's like, I don't see one, but Rand is not a storyteller. You know, he's not making stuff up. So his dad, they are more careful as they're walking along. They keep an eye out. They're on the defensive now, but Tam didn't see it. Only this kid saw it. So they make their way into town, but weird.
Totally weird. And then town happens. And this is just fun because you start to meet the town characters. And again, I know all the names because I've read this several times and they show up in later books, but we don't need to go into them in detail now. But there are crusty old ones. There's the families that everybody knows are kind of shady. You know, those are the ones that kind of cheat and are lazy. There's the hardworking ones. There's the honest mayor who happens to be the innkeeper. There's the jack just ripped blacksmith, Harold Luhan.
He's awesome.
The thing. Yeah, there's all these great characters. But probably the most important character bumps up against Rand right away is his good friend, same age as him, Matrim Cauthon. Matt is a troublemaker.
He's a prankster.
Everyone knows it. Everyone kind of likes him, but nobody trusts him because his pranks they're not mean, but they're annoying. Yeah. I mean, he is definitely a troublemaker. And in fact, when he nudges Rand, he's so excited because they've caught a badger and they're going to set it loose on the green and watch the girls run. Like, that's his plan here.
They're prepping for this party. He has older sisters, so it was kind of inevitable.
Yeah, right. But as they're talking, it becomes clear that Matt saw something too. That it's not just Rand that saw one of these Dark Riders. Matt saw it. Now, nobody believes anything Matt says. And Rand kind of thinks it almost hurts his case that Matt saw one too, because anybody else would be more reliable. But they decide they're going to ask around and see if anybody else has seen this guy or not. And Matt gets roped into helping them unload the barrel. And it's funny. It's fun the way this whole first scene works its way out.
In this springtime, that's still winter. Rand's dad and the innkeeper, all these adults, they're part of the council in the town. You know, this group of men who they're kind of a small town leadership board, and they're meeting trying to figure out what to do. People will starve if crops don't come up. And they talk about wolves around. Like, it's been a really bad spring. It's still winter and people are starting to get worried about supply. But this is a party. All right, they are prepping for a party anyway. And there's tell that a gleeman will be there.
Yeah, the council has been doing stuff. So there's a peddler that's supposed to come to town. And the rumor is there's going to be fireworks. So a peddler, fireworks, a gleeman. And we're going to talk about him more when he shows up because he's awesome. This is just so exciting that all this is going to come to Emmons Field.
But throughout these conversations, you already start learning about what's okay and what is the stuff of legend. And they fear now men who can channel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is something, there's rumors of a false dragon. That would be a man who can channel, but isn't really the dragon. And nowhere close to them. They live in their safe little town. But out there in the big world, rumors. And that's part of what the peddler brings is news from outside. These things are terrifying to them. They scare little kids with stories about false dragons and men who can channel because they are doomed to go mad. Same with this odd thing called Aes Sedai.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, what's Aes Sedai? I mean, it just rolls these things because they're known to this group of people. We learn what they think about it. Aes Sedai are the female channelers. They too are feared, though, because they were part of what was called the breaking of the world way back when. But there is fear with all of these things inside this little community. This is the stuff of like spooky stories.
Yeah.
Not real. Same with like Trollocs. What's a Trolloc? They talk about these things, but like they're legends, they're fables, spooky stories.
But the outside world is making its way. We already mentioned the peddler. He's got a name, Padan Fain. He does show up a lot, so it's probably worth knowing him. And yeah, the council hears his tales of this false dragon, this man who can channel, and they swoop him into the room before anyone else can buy anything from him to have him get the stories from him. But he's not the only stranger from the outside world that has shown up into town. Nobody comes here. There's no reason for anybody to come here other than the occasional like wool merchant who comes to buy the wool from their sheep. But a lady comes. A lady and what is obviously a fighting man who's in service with her. And they show up and the whole town is talking about them. We also learn a little bit about town structure. I mentioned that there's a mayor. We've mentioned that there's a council. And this is kind of the male side of leadership in the town. But there is also a woman circle. And the woman circle is led by somebody called the Wisdom. And so you also have the female side of leadership of this town. And it's one of the things I love about this series is that we see in so many different aspects this idea of kind of male and female working both against each other and with each other. So great things happen when they work together. Things fall apart when they're just fighting each other, and both occur regularly. And so we meet the Wisdom of Emond's Field, and it is a very young woman named Nynaeve.
That's close. I say Nynaeve. I'll go with it.
There we go.
It's spelled funny. She is a force.
Yes.
Apparently, no one has ever been so young and still a wisdom. But she has earned it. She loves helping people, caring for people. And yet she's very sharp. Yeah. She likes to yell at people.
She carries a stick. Yeah. She whaps people with it.
Frequently. And like they talk a lot about the backside of her tongue or the rough side of someone's tongue in this. So the descriptions of how men and women interact are very funny. So Rand, there's a girl. Everyone kind of knows he's probably going to marry the innkeeper's daughter. Her name is Egwene. And, they're still young and he's so embarrassed. And in his mind, he's like, oh, if only I was like Matt. He knows how to talk to girls.
That's right.
But then later on, Matt's like, oh, if only I was like Rand. He knows how to talk to girls. They all think somebody else does better.
What we learned is that nobody knows how to talk to girls. No. That's what I get from this story.
That's true.
The other thing is, remember, we've been talking about this spring festival, and we get this really fun interest into these traditions that happen here. So there's always a bonfire. There's this massive bonfire, and then there is the spring pole. So I'm imagining this like medieval maypole where people walk around it with ribbons. But in this community, this is traditionally done by the young women who are not of marriageable age. The Women's Council determines when women are of marriageable age and then grants them permission to braid their hair. So the presence of a braid is a big deal. It's a coming of age rite in this community. And Rand is a little taken aback when Egwene, for the first time ever, has her hair braided.
They are signaling for sure. As they're prepping for this party, though, you mentioned this beautiful woman and her armed strongman that show up. And I got to talk about him. His name is Lan Mandragoran, which is a cool name. he is like the coolest written character, one of them ever. It talks about how he can hold perfectly still. Makes me think of a gorilla when they can hold perfectly still, but when they move, they go. I mean, you can just tell by looking at him that he is a warrior. He is trained and fell and just so cool. But he's with this small, beautiful woman who just looks fine compared to their small town. They describe her clothes as nicer than they've ever seen. She wears her hair down, but not because she's not of age. It describes they can't tell how old she is. Sometimes her eyes look like she's, centuries old, but she herself looks very young. She's a different thing entirely.
Yeah. And is it too early for me to say this? Lan is my favorite character in the entire series.
So Rand and Mat are friends, but they have another friend pop up too. I said, there's a lot of characters in this. Don't worry. It all becomes clear as we go. But Rand and Mat both saw someone, a cloaked figure. And like you said, nobody trusts Mat, but Perrin is the blacksmith's apprentice. He's this gentle, huge man or young man. And he's just giant. They always comment on how careful he is to move around because he's so powerful. He's always worried he's going to break something or someone. Mm-hmm. But Perrin shows up and he too had seen a cloaked rider and that feeling of hate from the rider. And somehow the woman, we learned her name, Lady Moraine, they stumble over themselves speaking to her because she's so fine outside anything they've ever experienced. But she is curious about their experiences. And she gives them each a coin.
Yeah. And they describe the coin in wonderful detail. It's this big, fat silver coin. And again, this is Hicksville. This coin is enough for them to buy a horse if they wanted to. I mean, they've never seen this much money. But they get this sense, and it's the three young men, Rand, Mat, and Perrin, that they're not going to spend it. That this is meant for them to keep. The other things described on the coin is the face of a woman holding a flame in her hand. And that's going to become important.
Yes, they're talking to her, Moraine. She's delighted that they already know her name because this town has been talking about her. And they wonder, why are you here? It's just the back end of nowhere and nothing ever happens. And she says, I am a student of history, a collector of old stories. This place you call the Two Rivers has always interested me. Sometimes I study the stories of what happened here long ago, here and at other places. And they're like, stories? Whatever happened here? She actually tells them a little bit about how as the wheel turns, many things happen in places. And here has a rich history that the people now have zero clue about it. They've grown up there, never even heard of it. It used to be this land of power and nobility called Manetheren. They are given this heritage and history that they'd never even heard of. Mm-hmm.
And she's going to tell that story in a really cool way, but not quite yet. There's one other character that we've already alluded to that shows up now, but in a surprising way. The Gleeman, Tom Merrilin, gets thrown out of the inn because the council is in there interviewing the peddler. He dares to come in and ask for, breakfast, and he gets chucked out for bothering them. He's like, hey, I thought I was hired to come here and entertain. Gleemen in this world have a characteristic. They all have a patched cloak. This cloak with these patches that flutter in the breeze of all sorts of different colors. And this is how you know a Gleeman, and he's an entertainer. But quickly you see that this is a special Gleeman. This isn't just any old entertainer. He's got a harp. He's got a flute. They're golden and silver. He juggles like a master. He says he can eat fire, and he says he knows all tales. All stories. He starts talking about sleight of hand magic tricks he's going to do. And he starts talking about stories, and people in the crowd start asking for different stories. And so as he's juggling and talking and starting to tell these stories, everyone is getting really excited until he turns and he sees Moraine, at which point he stops juggling completely. It's interesting because their interaction is tense and polite. Somebody points out that Moraine also tells stories. And there is this back and forth where he says that he will try and tell stories that only amuse. And you get the sense that there's something deeper going on here that's going to happen, and that Tom Maryland, the Gleeman, recognizes something about this stranger who's come to the town.
It's at this point. So the Gleeman got kicked out of the inn because the council was talking. Like, get out. We're busy. But here's where they break. And Tam, Rand's father, was part of that council. And usually when they come to town, they deliver their stuff and they're staying for the party. But Tam does not like the news that the peddler has brought about wars afar, and the news about local things with wolves about, and these stories about this cloaked rider. That's weird and scary. So Tam says, Rand, we're going home. We'll come back tomorrow for the dance, but they're going to go back to their farm. Rand is disappointed, but I feel like he kind of gets it. It's a strange time and weird things are happening.
And farm life is just hard. I mean, in any age, in any civilization, there's always work to be done. And so Rand, who thought he was about to get to party for a couple days, now finds himself back on the farm with a few hours of daylight left. And, well, guess it's time to chop some firewood. And they both just get to work and start doing things around the farm. But the description of the way these two men live together is pretty fantastic. It is a happy home. They love each other. It's a father and son working together. He has lost the wife and mother years ago. Rand barely remembers her at all. Tam never looks like he's going to remarry, and they're just happy on this farm that's prosperous out in the Westwood. Eventually they go inside. There's this whole cooking scene. There's the books laying around. There's candlelight. But a few strange things happen that Rand doesn't remember ever happening before. Tam locks the door. Rand didn't even know they could lock the door. I mean, that's just not something they've ever needed to do. And so that was strange. The other thing that he has never seen before that happens is that Tam goes upstairs and there's a bunch of kind of shuffling and scraping, and Rand realizes, oh, he must be pulling out that box from under his bed. Rand doesn't know what's in that box. And Tam walks down the stairs with a sword around his waist. And this is beautiful. The sword.
Rand asked him about, because this is weird. This has never happened. And that box upstairs, you get the sense Rand didn't even care what was in it. It's not like there was mystery here. They just lived a very simple life. This is what they did. And yep, there was a box. But he asked his dad, like, where did you get that? Because this is a nice looking sword and there's these birds on it. They look like herons. Tam says, I got it a long time ago, a long way from here. And I paid entirely too much. He says, 2 coppers is too much for one of these. Your mother didn't approve, but she was always wiser than I. I was young then, and it seemed worth the price at the time. She always wanted me to get rid of it, and more than once I've thought she was right and I should just give it away. But he's pulling it out here because there's a sense of fear now, a sense of danger, and he's preparing.
The description of the sword is wonderful, and he does a great job describing weapons over the course of this. I envision on this almost a cavalry saber. So sharp on one side, slightly curved, short quillions, and then again the heron mark. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So dinner's ready. Stew's about ready to go. They're about to start eating when all of a sudden their life changes forever. There is a crash, and what walks through the door is something that should not exist. It is this giant mix between a man and an animal, and it is the first vision we get of a Trolloc. Most high fantasy has some sort of generic bad guy villain. These are the ones for the Wheel of Time. It's the size of a troll that has a lot of the characteristics of an orc, but they have very different shapes and features, but it's some twisting blending, usually of men and animals, frequently wolves or birds or goats. And they're strong and mean, and all they do is kill. And now there are several on the farm, and one that has just come through the door.
I like that Rand's first impression is relief, because it wasn't the Black Rider.
Yeah.
He busts down their door, and he's like, oh, at least it's not that guy. They don't know what, or Rand doesn't know what this is. This is the stuff out of legend, out of story. It's a Trolloc, but they figure it out as these animal creatures, Trollocs, just flood the room and come at them. Tam knows how to use that sword. It's amazing.
Tam is so awesome. He is incredible. And Rand had no idea. I mean, he knew his father was solid. He knew his father was dependable and reliable and steady. Turns out his father has seen a thing or two, and he starts just dancing with this blade. And he tells Rand to run, to get out of there.
It's funny, though, because Tam had locked the door. He never locks the door. They have a front and a back door. So Rand tries to run out the back. It's locked. So he actually escapes out the window. And part of him is ashamed. He's running while his dad is there fighting for his life. But Tam escapes because he's a sword master. I mean, who knew about this small town farmer back into nowhere? No, he's awesome. And they run into the woods to hide. Rand's trying to find him. They're trying to find each other in the woods.
Mm-hmm. And these are hunters. I mean, Rand has grown up hunting in these woods and stalking rabbits and things like that. And these sort of skills serve him very well here because he's hanging out in the woods waiting for Tam and trying to decide, do I have to go back to find him? And just as he's about to do it, he feels a hand on his shoulder, and it's Tam. Tam is awesome and has gotten away and has come to him, but he needs to breathe for a moment because he's feeling a little tired. He's been injured. He took a cut from the blade, but it's not much of a cut. I mean, Rand comments that he's seen his dad take injuries worse than that and not even stop working for the day. Well, this seems to be a different kind of cut. There's got to be a poison or something going on in that wound. And all of a sudden, Tam starts going into this kind of fever trance where he can't talk quite right. He can't move. He starts shaking. And Rand realizes he needs to get Tam help. They are in the Westwood. They are far away from the village. They are on their own, but he waits till all the noise dies down, till he thinks the Trollocs have left, and he decides he needs to go back and see what he can do. He needs to see if he can find the horse, if he can find the cart, if he can get food, medicine, anything like that. The Trollocs have destroyed everything. The cart is busted up. The horse is gone. The food is spoiled. There's nothing useful here. But Rand has taken his father's sword and he's able to slash at some wood to make a bearer, a litter for him to carry his dad. He's inside looking for like clean shirts to use as bandages and water, things like that.
A blanket. It's cold outside. Blanket.
When all of a sudden, Rand hears a voice, but it's not a normal voice. One of the Trollocs was getting to its feet. A wolf's muzzle jutted out below sunken eyes. Flat, emotionless eyes, and all too human. It muttered something guttural and sharp, then said, "Others go away. Narg stay. Narg smart." The Trolloc is talking to him. Rand is holding the sword now, and this Trolloc is talking to him, and he says, "Someone wants to meet you."
He names it. It says, "Myrddraal want to talk you." Okay, this is some kind of guttural vernacular that this Trolloc can speak. Rand has heard of a Myrddraal. They're in the stories. Those are the cloaked figures of hate and evil. And this Trolloc attacks him. Somehow Rand keeps that sword up.
Good
and
on
he
him.
kills his first Trolloc. I mean, this, if you think about all the battles and things that happen in these stories, I feel like this was the closest call. He knows nothing.
Yeah, this could have gone sideways fast and the story could have been over before it started.
He's terrified. Kind of out of sheer luck. He keeps the sword up. The Trolloc leaps at him and he kills him. Kills the Trolloc, to be clear. This is a big deal for Rand. I mean, this is not anything he's ever even considered as a possibility. A Myrddraal. These are, what's a good parallel for a Myrddraal? Like if, for you and me, it would be like if the boogeyman, charged through the door.
Mm-hmm.
A Nazgul suddenly appeared.
Yeah, it would be the one that the orcs are scared of.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Trollocs are the orcs, right, the Fades, the Myrddraal, the Halfmen, the Eyeless, those are all names for the same thing. These are the ones that the Trollocs are scared of. And that wants to talk to Rand specifically. Rand does not want to talk to it.
He's very scared.
He gets out of there.
He does. And good on him, though. He's prioritizing his father's health. He can't help Tam. He knows he has to get him to the wisdom, the healer. That's what she does. But it is a long walk. On a normal day, takes a while. And bearing a litter with enemies around is even harder. So he makes his litter where he's towing his father along, who's in a fever dream and just kind of rambling, which is terrifying because he doesn't know where those Trollocs are. Mm-hmm. This is a long walk through the night for this kid. He's exhausted. It's cold. He's in pain, towing his not small dad along behind him. But Tam keeps talking. And most of it's gibberish. But at some point, he says something that makes Rand stop.
They came over the dragon wall like a flood, Tam said suddenly in a strong, angry voice, and washed the land with blood. How many died for layman's sin? Where did this come from? Rand has no idea what he's talking about. There isn't any flood of Trollocs, father, not now anyway. But Tam keeps going. He is consumed by this fever dream. They called them savages, Tam said urgently. The fools said they could be swept aside like rubbish. How many battles lost? How many cities burned before they faced the truth? Before the nations stood together against them? All the way to the shining walls they burned and slew before they returned back. All the way to... Rand clamped a hand over his dad's mouth. I mean, there are Trollocs walking down the road. There's a Myrddraal that's there. And he's trying to hide as his dad is flitting between the past and the present. And he keeps talking about this battle, this series of battles, this bloodshed. But then he keeps going and he keeps talking. Avendasora, it said it makes no seed, but they brought a cutting to Cairhien, a sapling, a royal gift of wonder for the king. Oh, what's this? What's going on here? He keeps going. Blood was the price for Avendalur Dara. Blood the price for layman's pride. We don't know what any of this means, and Rand doesn't know what any of this means. And then finally we come to this passage. And this one is broken in the way it's spoken. Again, he's in a fever. Battles are always hot, even in the snow. Sweat, heat, blood heat. Only death is cool. Slope of the mountain. Only place didn't stink of death. Had to get away from smell of it, sight of it. Heard a baby cry. There, women fight along the men. Sometimes, but why had they let her come? I don't... Gave birth there alone before she died of her wounds. Covered the child with her cloak, but the wind blown the cloak away. Child blew with the cold. Should have been dead, too. Crying there, crying in the snow. I couldn't just leave a child. No children of our own. Always knew you wanted children. I knew you'd take it to your heart, Carrie. Yes, lass. Rand is a good name. A good name.
Here's where Rand falls to the ground. And it's his thinking like, you are my father. He has never known anything else. His mother had died years and years ago, so it's been the two of them. But Tam has always been his father. But it's here you start thinking about it, because they did describe both of them in fair detail. Rand's a lot taller than his dad. He doesn't look like his dad. He's got different hair color. His eyes are different color. There's no real family similarities. But he's like, no, you are my father. And it's still dangerous. And so they keep heading toward the village. Rand stands up and keeps going.
And Rand also doesn't look like anyone else in Aemond's Field. Mm-hmm. He's taller than him, and nobody has eyes his color. Everyone else has brown or dark eyes, Mat and Perrin and all the rest. And so it's just a terrible night for Rand. I mean, even without this, it would have been awful. But now he's wondering if he's lost his father, that it's not really his dad.
As he keeps walking, and he doesn't know how close to the town he is because he's taken this side path, staying off the road, but he smells smoke. And not the right kind of smoke, not like a normal fire smoke. As he staggers into town, he can tell Trollocs have been there. This town has been hit by the same evil that came to their farmhouse. But it looks weird because it happens in patches. So some have been hit and some are totally fine. It's not that the whole thing is gone, but everybody's out in the street. They're making best of it. They're pulling things together. They're salvaging. And for Rand, this was where it was all going to be okay. If he could get to town, they could help his dad. Everything would be all right. Everyone there is hurting too and recovering. I love that the blacksmith comes and helps him carry the litter.
He's so awesome. It's so just jacked.
Talks about how tired he is, but he doesn't acknowledge it either. He too has been working and doing these things all night. But they find the wisdom, who does care. But she touches Tam. She looks at his wound, which again, it's just a scratch. But there is some evil with these weapons. She basically says, sorry, I can't heal him. Mm-hmm. She leaves pretty abruptly to go help others who she can help.
And Egwene is with her because Egwene, this is Rand's girlfriend and probably sort of betrothed, is an apprentice wisdom. She's training with Nynaeve and she needs to go help who they can help. And so Rand is now there alone. But they describe the main characteristic of people from the Two Rivers is stubbornness. Mm-hmm. And Rand has this in spades and he is not going to give up now. And so, well, the wisdom can't help. Time to go to the mayor. And so he takes his dad to the Wine Spring Inn, the inn in town, for the mayor to help him.
Tam is the mayor's friend. He's like, we got to get the wisdom here right away. She's the healer. And they send Tom to go get her.
Yeah, the Gleeman.
The Gleeman. And he goes, but comes back very cranky because he got yelled at because she had already seen Tam.
Yeah, he's grumpy. You should have told me you already talked with her.
Because he got yelled at. But there's a lot in these stories about handling delicate conversations well, deftly. So something with the Gleeman is that he can do that. He can bring things up without being very obvious about it. And this is our first example of that. He says, I was just wondering if the mayor knew who scrawled the dragon's fang on his door. Someone seems not to like him anymore, or maybe it's his guests they don't like. So the dragon fang is something really horrible that you can basically mark someone, you can identify them as evil, a friend of the devil, by drawing this dragon fang over their door. Someone has marked the mayor's door like that on this night when Trollocs, out of nowhere, out of legend, came and attacked the town. But the Gleeman says, or maybe there's someone here that they don't like. He's talking about the woman Moraine, the Lady Moraine. We learn that she can channel. She was there that night, her and her protector, her warder, Lan. She channeled lightning to come down and destroy Trollocs. This woman who they just thought was beautiful and fine and okay, she's here for some old stories. No, she can actually do magic. They never call it that. It's always the power, the channeling power, but bringing down lightning to hurt their enemies.
Throwing fire from her hands. I mean, and then between her and Lan, it is amazing.
Yeah.
Because Lan is just this whirlwind of steel all around her. And the village would have fallen if it hadn't been for the two of them that night.
He's death walking. And so his role, because they have heard of these things, Aes Sedai and warders. You're like, no, those aren't real. Well, they're there. They saw it. They witnessed. But they've also heard that Aes Sedai have healing abilities. And so Rand is stubborn and he will not be stopped. And he decides to go look for this woman who they're terrified of. I mean, she helped them, but there's danger with them. There's always intrigues with Aes Sedai. All the stories about them, you can't really trust them. Mm-hmm. You don't know what they're there for, what their motives are, but he doesn't care. If she can help his father, he's in.
And it was the one power that caused the breaking, that destroyed civilization, that they're only sort of starting to recover from. So yeah, trust is not high, but he doesn't have options, and he goes to her. And he's pretty foolish with this. We've talked in past stories about the rash boon. He kind of gives one here, where he tells her, any price in my power he's willing to pay if she will heal his father. Any price in my power. She kind of shuts him down on that. Says, we'll talk about price later. He never should have offered that, but fortunately she doesn't take advantage of that right here. And so Moraine and Lan go to the inn, and Moraine gets to work.
I like this quote, though. It says, help from an Aes Sedai was sometimes worse than no help at all. So the story said, like poison in a pie, and their gifts always had a hook in them, like fish bait.
Yeah. And the Aes Sedai are so cool and are going to be an ongoing thing. They also have stuff. And this is where I just want to mention some of the things that I think are so cool about what Robert Jordan does. She has a tool with her. It doesn't look like much. It's this little like carved doll, this little figurine. But it turns out it is an angrail. What's that? Well, it sounds a lot like grail. An angrail is a tool we learn later that can enhance her ability to channel the one power. it can make her even stronger than she is in her own right. She doesn't need it to channel, but it's a tool that can make it even more useful to her. Turns out there are other ones out there called ter'angreal that use the one power for a very specific purpose. And there's lots of different ones of those that will show up. And then rarest of all, there are what are called sangreal. And so he weaves this Grail legend in, and it's one of the things that hooked me in this. Oh, we've got the Grail already, but it's a Grail. But you can see how he kind of rolls it into this weaving. And this is part of how she is able to actually heal Tam, is she has this extra power. While she's doing it, though, Lan and Rand have a conversation. Rand is kind of sitting there watching, and Lan pops up and says, "That's an interesting sword. Does it happen to have a heron on the blade?" And this is where we learn what the herons mean. A heron-marked blade is a symbol of a blade master. So however Tam got this, Tam was a blade master. Lan has a sword, and Lan is incredible. His doesn't have herons on the blade. There is something special about this sword that Tam has.
And Rand tells Lan, he's like, "Yeah, it's my dad's." And his dad is lying there near death as Moiraine works, but they talk about it a little bit, and Lan says, "He called it useless, did he? He must not always have thought so. There are places where the heron is a symbol of the master swordsman. That blade must have traveled a strange road to end up with a sheep herder in the Two Rivers." But he's watching Moiraine, and he can visibly see Tam heal. He goes from in pain and rasping breath to sleeping peacefully. I mean, this is magic, and it's wonderful, a wonderful use of it.
It is a wonderful use, but Tam is exhausted, and he doesn't wake up, and Rand asks if he can wait and watch over his father till he wakes up. Moiraine doesn't have any problem with this, but she does mention that he'll probably have to leave the village when they do. And this catches Rand on the hop. He doesn't want to leave the village. Why should he have to leave the village? And Moiraine admits that she's handling this badly, but she starts to explain that the attacks were very specific. And she reminds him that she's been learning about story. She's been asking questions. And there were 3 young men in the town that were all born almost the exact same time. Rand, Mat, and Perrin. That is where the attacks were. All the other attacks were distractions. And so for whatever reason, the Dark Lord, the one who controls Trollocs and Halfmen, Fades Myrddraal, is seeking these 3 boys. And if they stay, they are going to put that entire village in danger. Rand doesn't want to go. He doesn't think the others want to go, although he's not talking with them yet. But he starts to realize that this is something he's going to have to do. But he's going to talk with his dad first.
Well, she convinces Rand that this is true because not everywhere in town got attacked. Very specific places. Rand's farm, where he lives, the house where Mat Cauthon lives, and the forge where Perrin works and lives. They were clearly targeted in this attack. It wasn't random. It's very specific. And they were the 3 who saw the Fades. Fades, Halfmen, Myrddraal, everything has multiple names, which is part of why I say just roll with it.
Yeah, it'll all come clear.
But he's surprised still. He's like, a Myrddraal, they're 20 feet tall and they can disappear whenever they want to. And I love this. I think it's Lan who says, "Sometimes, sheep herder, stories make things larger than the truth. Believe me, the truth is big enough with a half-man. They're bad enough, so let's not bring old stories into it."
So Rand has been convinced that, yeah, he's probably got to go. But again, he's going to wait for Tam to wake up, and he falls asleep. And what happens next is something that's going to recur repeatedly in this first volume. Dreams. Rand is going to have a dream, and it's a weird one. He is going to have a sequence of these dreams. And I don't think we're going to go through all of them in detail, but it sets the tone of somebody able to look for him or hunt for him. They're hunting for him in the real world, but they're also hunting for him in this dream. And he actually does, through several of these dreams, see his friends, Perrin and Mat. And they have similar dreams where somebody is trying to hunt for them. And so he's having this terrifying dream where he goes on this journey. He goes on an island. He sees Dragonmount. He's welcomed into a city. And he opens a door and there's a Myrddraal waiting for him. Then he wakes up.
It says, "We have been waiting for you."
Yeah.
Terrifying. Oh.
But when he wakes up, Tam is awake. And we already know Tam has some history. Tam has done some things. And it turns out Tam has spent some time around Aes Sedai. And he asks him, "What did she tell you?" Like specifically the words. And this is where we first learn a very key point about Aes Sedai. It says, Aes Sedai are tricksome. They don't lie, not right out, but the truth an Aes Sedai tells you is not always the truth that you think it is. So he doesn't disagree that Rand has to go, but by golly, he's going to be up and following him as soon as he can. He's exhausted, but he's not a guy who likes to lie in bed.
No, but he is required to rest. And there's a lot in this about the power can heal people, but it's not the same thing as actual rest. It can help give you temporary energy, but even that requires sleep after. And so it's interesting that dreams are such a piece of this story because they have to sleep sometimes. I mean, everyone does, but that they're not free even when they go to sleep. What a hard time.
Yeah. We talked earlier about the dragon fang on the door. There is an Aes Sedai here, and this village is not happy that there's an Aes Sedai in the village. And everything gets interrupted right now because a mob forms outside of the inn. The innkeeper and the blacksmith are having none of this. They think it's ridiculous. The innkeeper, who everyone knows and likes and is a formidable presence, walks out and he's got like a club he uses to open kegs in his hand. He says, "So, who scratched the dragon fang on my door?" to this mob out in front of him. And then Harold Luhan, the blacksmith, who we've already described as a giant, just like cracks his fingers. I mean, just looks strong in front of
muscles
them.
Rippling as he does it. But they want to run her out, the Aes Sedai. She's not safe there. They don't want her there. But I think one farmer recognizes as they're talking, like, she healed my son.
Yeah. But it takes a little while to get there.
It's a mob. I mean, they're crazy.
Well, because Bran points that out. He's like, he calls the person by name and says, "I'm surprised at you. Your son is walking and he should be dead." And he starts pointing them out by name. But then the Aes Sedai steps forward. And this was when I knew I was going to love this series. This moment. Because Moiraine steps up and she has this staff in her hand and she's using it like fireworks. Light starts coming out of it. She's putting on this pyrotechnic show and she starts to tell a story and her voice becomes amplified. And it's a long story and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this is where we learn of Manetheren. This is where we learned that Emond's Field, the guy's name was originally Aemon, and he was a hero. He was a king, and he was a warder. Manetheren was the great stronghold against the Dark Lord. And it's just this incredible story of heroism and triumph and sacrifice. And that's who these people are. They're the descendants of these heroes, but they've forgotten. And so she wants to remind them, this is where you come from. There are bad times ahead. I hope you can remember who you are. And it gets me every time.
Yeah, she scolds them. She says, "Is this what Aemon's blood has come to? Little people squabbling for the right to hide like rabbits? You have forgotten who you were, forgotten what you were. But I had hoped some small part was left, some memory in blood and bone, some shred to steel you for the long night coming." She's awesome. I mean...
She really is.
Throughout this first book, well, that's not even true. Throughout the whole series, you can never tell whose side any of the Aes Sedai on. There are more later.
Oh, yeah.
But Moiraine is the one that we meet in this first book. And sometimes she seems to be on their side and sometimes not. But you can tell she has a goal. And it's against the Dark One. It's not necessarily the same goal as these farmers, not necessarily the same goal as these boys who are about to leave, but she is in a battle and she knows it.
Yeah.
They're still learning about their own battle, these boys, but she knows what hers is.
Yes. As you said, though, that guy that had his son healed, he steps forward and says, well, I don't know about all that hero stuff, but you saved my son, and I'm embarrassed to be here. And he walks out. And so the mob just melts away. This buys them time, and it is time for them to go. And this is where the journey really starts. And I love this because it's such a scramble. You've got Moiraine, who's obviously awesome and knows what she's doing. You have Lan, who is just incredible and knows what he's doing. And then you have these 3 farm boys who have no idea what they're doing. And so they're gathering in this stable, and Perrin is already there. And Lan asks him, like, all right, did you check everything like I showed you? Nobody's in here? And Perrin's like, yeah, I got it. I'm good. And then all of a sudden, like, Egwene walks up, and she's like, I'm going with you. They're like, no, you're not. Yes, I am. And Moiraine goes like Buddhist monk through this whole thing, like very accepting. The line she uses is, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. Again, this is that weaving, that pattern, that this is meant to happen. And so all of a sudden, you've got the 3 boys, Rand, Mat, Perrin, and Egwene. And then all of a sudden, you hear this voice from the rafters. I think I'm going to come with you too. And Tom pops down. Lan stares at Perrin at this point because he didn't check.
Yeah, Perrin didn't earn a lot of points with Lan here.
Yeah. And the Gleeman's like, obviously they don't like strangers. They know I came around when you did. I think I'm safer with you guys, so I'm going to come along. And it's interesting because Lan's sword is half out. And he looks at Moiraine, and there's a comment in here where it says they all wondered what would have happened if Moiraine hadn't nodded. Because Lan, blood and bone, I mean, he is going to do whatever she says. But now there's a group with Tom too. And so we've got the 3 boys. And it gets funnier because Rand has this sword. It's his one connection to his father. He's already rattled that it may not be his father. As long as he's got this sword, he's got a connection. So he's going to carry it. He's held a sword for all of 1 day. And he's got a heron-marked blade that marks him as a blade master. Well, that's going to get you in trouble.
Well, he keeps tripping on it too. Like, he tries to climb on a horse and he gets tangled. Like, this is new, but he's going to wear the thing.
He's not the only one with a weird weapon, though.
Right.
Perrin is looking kind of sheepish, like he always is, and this massive young man is hiding an axe. It's this wicked half-moon axe with a spike at the top that nobody uses these in the 2 rivers. Where did you get that? Well, the blacksmith had made it for a wool buyer's guard, and they didn't pay him, so he said I could have it when he saw me practicing with it. So now you have Perrin with an axe he doesn't know how to use. You have Rand with a sword he doesn't know how to use. Mat brought a bow. They all know how to use the bow.
Yeah.
And so Mat is with them. So it is a bumbling group that starts their way out of the 2 rivers.
It's funny though, Mat apologized about the bow. Like, well, I didn't bring anything like them. But Lan, the warder's the one who says that bow is a real weapon. Like, if you use it right, that's not what they've ever used it for. It's like small game hunting. Like, that's about as much as I think they've ever used it for. He's like, no, that thing's a real weapon. Mm-hmm. So there are weapons lessons later that are awesome.
There are.
But they head out into the night. It is strange that Egwene gets allowed to come because she does just pop up and she's being stubborn. Rand does not want her to go. He knows this is dangerous and he cares about her. But when Moiraine looks at her, she sees something about her, which becomes important. But they are on the run. I mean, they are running away from these enemies in the night. They're still around.
Yeah, they're sneaking out of town. I mean, it was so messed up, the leaving. Rand had to go find Bella, this cart horse, for Egwene, because there just weren't enough horses in the stable for everyone. And so Bella gets to come on the trip too.
Yeah, she's like, what's Sam's horse in the Lord of the Rings? Bill. He's like Bill in the Fellowship of the Ring, where it's like this random kind of pony horse thing that nothing compared to the beautiful animals that the others have. Like Moraine's horse is just gorgeous. And like Lan's is a weapon on its own. Yeah. The horse is a weapon.
And they all have names.
Yeah.
Moraine's horse is called Aldib. and it's this white, mare that's gorgeous. And yeah, Lan's horse shows up a lot because he's awesome. It's Mandarb, blade in the old tongue, and he's black, and yeah, he's a battle charger.
So many of the names in this, I mean, even of the towns and things, they echo other fantasy tales that you've heard. They're all very reminiscent. But yeah, Bella, it's just this sweet little horse. She's a cart horse that they use in the farm, and she's got to run with these like high mounts, but she does it. Egwene rides on Bella. They are attacked by Trollocs as they're sneaking out, and Bella runs.
Bella runs, and it's not just Trollocs. So we've met Trollocs, we've met Fades. We meet a new one here. This is the first time we hear about the Drakkar. The Drakkar is terrifying. It's like this vampire bat type creature, this shadow spawn that can suck the soul out of a living person. And it screams in the air and is flying over them and coming down. And one of the things Robert Jordan does a great job in this book are these little details that you don't catch the first read through, but on the third read through, you're like, oh, that's where that started. Rand knows that Moiraine and Lan did not want Egwene to come, and they're worried they're going to leave Egwene behind. If Bella can't keep up, they're not going to stop for her. So Rand wants something. He wants Bella to run, wants Bella to keep up. And it says that Rand actually reaches toward her, and it says his skin prickled and his bones felt as if they were freezing, ready to split open. And Bella ran. And they all make their way up until finally they get to a river.
Yeah, the names of the towns, they all have names. That's what I mean by this being a broad river of a book, because he'll mention histories and things that are part of each town, each place they go, each inn they go to later on. But this is Terran Ferry, and there's a river. They have to get across the river. I love how many phrases that he includes in these stories. And so people of Emond's Field, they know about Terran Ferry. This is like the shady guys a town over. And it says, if you shook hands with a Terran Ferry man, people said, you counted your fingers afterwards.
That's right.
Dude, I love those. I tried to mark all of them. I'm sure I missed some, but
there's so many good ones.
They really are. Think of them like proverbs or sayings. Sometimes they're compliments, sometimes they're wisdom. Just funny little things he tucks in that convey something about the local culture, the stories they've heard. They're really good.
And they're always folksy, kind of folksy and fun.
Yes. Count your fingers afterwards. Not known for their trustworthiness.
This ferryman is shady. He fits with the idea of a Terran ferryman. They roust him out of bed, but Lan has gold. Moiraine and Lan have money, and they are good at getting what they want, and they need to get across the water. Again, so many fun little things. He makes sure that all the boys have all their weapons showing, right? When they come so that they don't get robbed. Takes them across the water, and this is where things start getting even weirder. Because Lan is counting out money to the ferryman when all of a sudden the ferry that's on this side of the water starts to shift and loose. And there is a whirlpool in the middle of the water. No one is hurt, but this ferry is gone. Lan doesn't blink an eye, says, well, you're going to need more money for the ferry, and pays him. And then they leave. But all these villagers are just staring at Moiraine. Did she do that? Did she cause this ferry to just sink?
I mean, Rand and the boys take that to heart. I thought she was nice. She just sunk this boat. They know it's her. There's no other reason for it. It's this quiet river that suddenly destroys this boat. But they do seem very fair to pay him for it.
Right. And again, no one is injured. No one is hurt. But still, I mean, they don't know about her. They don't know what she's going to do or who she is or what her goals are. And it's not long after this that I think we have one of the more important scenes, because we get to enter into a hidden campsite. Lan is a woodsman. I mean, he is fantastic. And he has this place set up where they can camp and they're hidden. And Moiraine says, I need to talk to Egwene. And she pulls Egwene over. And Rand eavesdrops. He shouldn't, but he does. And we learn some really important stuff here. This is where Moiraine describes the one power. This is where she describes saidar, the female half of the power, and saidin, the male half of the power. This is where she describes how an Aes Sedai uses it like a water wheel. The saidar is the river, the water that flows over the wheel, and the Aes Sedai is the water wheel that uses the power, but the power is not used up by the using. It's a great mental image. She also talks about the fact that saidin, the male half, can't be used. This is where we learn of the taint that we described earlier. And Egwene has questions. You know, she wants to know, it's the guys, right? It was the guys' fault, the breaking. They're the ones who broke it. And Moiraine won't give her any easy answers on this. She says basically, look, there have been problems. The male half can't be used right now, but it was both sides of the Aes Sedai that caused the breaking of the world. You are going to find good and bad among channelers and users. And this is where we learn that Egwene can channel.
Moiraine tells her the old blood is strong in Emonsfield, and the old blood sings. I knew you for what you were the moment I saw you. No Aes Sedai can stand in the presence of a woman who can channel or is close to her change and not feel it. That's really important. Actually, throughout this story, that someone who can channel can sense it in someone else. It's not hidden. You have to actually do certain things to block it from someone else. And so that means that if there's good guys and bad guys, good women and bad women who can channel, you have to be careful because they can sometimes know things about you. Mm-hmm. There are feelings and drawings. This river of power isn't good or bad. It just keeps flowing. Mm-hmm. And it can be used by both sides.
And having read all the rest of the books, there's a couple other nuances about this that we learn later. One is not only can they sense if you can channel or not, if you're a female Aes Sedai, but you can also get a sense of how powerful the other one is. Because there are those who can channel more or less of the one power, and women can just know this about each other. Men, not the same. Men cannot sense another channeler unless they are actively channeling. And women cannot sense male channelers, and men cannot quite sense female channelers. But there's complexities and nuance, and we don't really get into that in this book, so I'll shut up now.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you have 14 books in a series, it's going to get more complex. So this is all very foundational. Mm-hmm. And so if some things come up as you read it, you like names of places will come up like Ilion, Tar Valon, all these places we don't actually go in this book. It's because it's prepping for later. It's a foundation of many, many stories that are all part of this series. It's really good. Highly recommend. But here, Egwene is guided through channeling for the first time. Moiraine guides her. And they use this little blue gem that Moiraine wears on her head, and she uses it as a focal point. It's interesting because Rand, with his father, he in his own mind talks about the flame and the void. Mm. Okay, this becomes a thing for several different characters where it's this way of focusing. And so he's listening to these women focus in on this blue jewel, and they're making it light up. And he's upset by this. He does not want Egwene to be one of these questionable, scary Aes Sedai. She's excited though. And she makes the stone flicker once on her own. It's weak, but she did it. But Rand is thinking, as they run, he keeps trying to grasp his flame in the void. His dad, the sword master, turns out, taught him this. Mm-hmm. It's this way of focusing, where he considers flame of a candle, and everything else around it is still and calm. And you basically feed your emotions, feed everything else, your fear, thoughts, anything else. You feed it into the flame, and all else disappears. It's how you achieve calm, even when things are happening. Theon taught his son this for hunting. Mm-hmm. So then when he was out, you're taking a calm shot, your breathing is steady. Well, here, this to me is such an echo of that focusing in, where you're pouring your thoughts and emotions into something.
Yeah, I think you are absolutely right on that. The flame and the void, boy, that's so important.
So Moiraine is able to heal to some extent. And Lan does a great job of describing what she can and what she can't do to some extent to these boys. But basically it says she's the only one who's going to ride tired. she can help all of them. She can put her hands on them and use the power in a way to basically give them a equivalent of an extra night's sleep because they're all tired. There's been days and they're running and they're exhausted and been afraid. She can help them. She can't use it on herself, which I think is very interesting and very internally consistent throughout these stories. Where in Aes Sedai, it wears on them. They partake in this channeling. It does take energy, but she helps them rest.
Yeah. And the horses. He also cleanses the horses so that they can keep going and keep moving. And there's all this discussion during this traveling part because what just happened was crazy. Trollocs? Really? And they're traveling. They've never been out of their town before. And there's other towns and they're like, oh, we get to see a city or a village. And they're wondering, is this real? I mean, they keep going back and forth, but the will and the determination of Moiraine drives them. She has a plan and they are going to be going with her. And this is where we reach the first actual city. It's not a big city, but to the kids from the Two Rivers, it seems like a big city.
They're gaping, yes.
This is where we get to Baerlon. And this is the first of many, warning now, so many inns, so many innkeepers. They're all described in detail. I've had people read this series who just cannot handle the sheer number of inns and innkeepers and cities. The important ones will come back. This one, though, is important, where they go to the Stag and Lion Inn at Baerlon.
Why do you think he bothered to name all the inns?
I think he loved to play Dungeons and Dragons. This is a pure theory. I don't know the man personally, but I think he loved D&D, and this to me just smacks of a campaign.
You name everything?
A lot do. It's an immersion thing. It's a way to be immersed in the world and to be around it. I have listened to his wife, who's given interviews, talk. And Harriet talks about, as she was editing his work, she always had to keep telling him, tighter, shorter, tighter, right? More focused. But kind of like Tolkien, he loved to embellish. I think he saw this world and really loved to describe the world and the people in it. And so that had to get reined in because, I mean, this is a 700-page book. I don't know what it would have been without Harriet to help make it better.
I do think it adds a personal aspect of it. It makes it feel important. As they're going through it, so are you. You're at the Stag and Lion or whatever it's called. Because there's a lot of inns. I don't have it memorized. But it's true of the clothing, too. Each place they go, there's customs and cultures, and even to how they kneel later on, even to how they walk or their speech, they can identify different people from different places, or how they look. That Rand didn't look like somebody from the Two Rivers. He doesn't look right. Not for that area. And so those things, I think they add context to it. But yeah, coming up with that many names would have been hard. They stop at a lot of inns.
There are a lot of inns. And it gets even more complicated because Lan and Moiraine don't go by their names in Baerlon. They go by the names Mistress Alice and Master Andra. They are different names they use in this city, and they warn the villagers, do not use our real names, do not talk about what's been happening. There are higher stakes going on. There are bigger things going on than the villagers know, and they start to get a taste of that here in this inn. The innkeeper knows them and loves them. They pay well. They've been there before. And so they've got a place where they can go and get private baths and a private dining room. And it's decided that they're actually going to rest in this town for a couple days.
I think this is the first mention of the children.
It is.
There are children of the light in this city. And clearly, Mistress Alice and Master Andra know who that is or what that is. We don't. This is how he introduces just worlds of people. But she's not happy that they're there. But she asked the innkeeper, is Min still here? I wish to talk with her if she is. We're like, who's Min?
Yeah, I've heard of Min.
There is so much more to the story, and you learn it in these pieces. And so they do get a bath. They get some food. They feel great after they're running and running. Matt
almost talks too much. He keeps trying to tell stories while they're bathing in the bath. At 10 minutes there, and both Tom and Perrin just shut him up. I was like, what? I'm just trying to talk. So they're learning this whole adventure thing. But then I mentioned dreams. And so after their bath, after they eat, they go to bed that night, and there's another dream. And this one is, again, terrifying. And there's another name that we should probably say. This is Baal-Zaman. Baal-Zaman is a name for the Dark Lord. It means heart of dark in the Trolloc tongue. And he is in the dreams. And he is actually the driving force behind most of these dreams. And he's usually described as a man with a face of fire. He opens his mouth and they just see fire descending into it. But he's navigating this dream world, and they're all so strange and so weird. And he talks to them and he tells them things. And then he does things to try and frighten them, but to give them a sense that they're not safe. And so in this one, the dream ends with him using some magical power to actually bend a rat in half and snap its back. It's a horrible scene, but all of the boys have this dream. And in the morning, they overhear one of the kitchen help talking about the fact that that's a weird way for our cats to have killed a rat. There are rats in the inn who have been killed in that way. And so again, they're delighted to be in a city. They're having fun in the inn. They get to sleep. They get a bath, but they're not safe.
And there's already, you can tell that those dreams aren't just dreams. They can manifest at least a little bit. That rat died. More than one. And the boys don't want to share these dreams. They're horrible. But they do find out from each other, like, yeah, I had that one too. They never talk about them extensively. I think they're too scary, too terrifying, too real. They don't know why they're being targeted, but they are specifically by name, all three of them. But in this town, Lan and Moiraine, they use this as an opportunity to gather news too. Mm-hmm. This is a battle, and there's intelligence, and gossip seems to be the way that much is learned. But there's mention of a Logain, and they're like, a false dragon? That was what the peddler back in the Two Rivers had talked about. There was war happening because someone had claimed maybe to be a dragon, the dragon had reborn. Well, no, he's a false dragon. But then there's rumors and people die over this. There's fighting. The guy's name is Logain, and they know that he's a man who can channel. And that causes fear anytime it happens.
Mm-hmm. So they're gathering news. And the next day, so they get there that first night. There's all that. They have the dreams. And then the next day is kind of a day off. The boys are allowed to go tour a city if they want. And then Tom, who is a little tired being around all these yokels, the gleeman, he is out to strum up business because he's in town. He can walk into any one of these inns and start singing and telling stories, and he can make money. And so he's going to go do that. Turns out Matt gets up really early. He's a farmer, right? He's up and out the door, and he's going to see the town. Perrin is going to sleep late. He's got a terrible headache. He had a bad dream, and he doesn't want to go anywhere. So Perrin's hanging out in the inn. But Rand is kind of in the middle. He gets up after Matt, but before Perrin. Perrin doesn't want to go anywhere, and so Rand goes out and starts exploring the town. And he's walking through what seems to him to be this massive place, when all of a sudden he bumps into somebody that he's not expecting. Earlier, we told you that the name of the peddler was Padan Fain. Fain is in Baerlon. Rand is delighted because he thought the guy had died. Remember, the Trollocs came and attacked the town, everything. I mean, he disappeared. So he assumed that he was just dead. But no, he is looking just bedraggled and poorly and is there in Baerlon on his own. And it's an interesting meeting, kind of a chance meeting in this town.
But Padan Fain, he runs away. He does not seem okay meeting Rand at all.
No, and he makes Rand promise not to tell Mistress Alice that he saw him.
Yeah. But Rand does find Matt. And Matt and Rand, this is the biggest town they've ever seen. Turns out it's kind of podunk. It's not really a town, but for them, it's a big deal. Yeah. But Matt is still Matt. He is a trickster. And there's these people walking down the road, and they look shiny. They have these white cloaks gleaming. They're very clean and beautiful. People walk wide around them. They definitely are people of importance. But Matt sees a cart. What is it, a cart of apples?
Yeah. I can't remember if it's apples or barrels, but something that is just being held in place by one little peg. And if that peg were to go away, this whole thing would roll towards them. And this is too good to resist. Matt loves taking people down a peg, and these guys in the white cloaks, they need to be taken down a peg.
You're right, it's barrels. Because Matt climbs up, he takes this peg out. He's pretty good with a slingshot, turns out. Slingshots and bows. That's what these boys know.
Yeah, he's fantastic with it.
These barrels roll out and just drench these, what used to be pristine, very pretentious-looking men marching along. They're just doused in, I forget, barrels of beer or something.
And the mud splatters them, and they're
mess.
dropping to the side. And again, these are people that everyone is avoiding them because they're so dangerous, because they've got these swords on their hips. But this is hilarious, and Rand laughs. Matt has run off to, better angle and target it, but Rand is just standing there laughing. Everybody else in the town knows to get away from here, but Rand is just doubled over laughing, and the White Cloaks see him. I think this might be a good time to talk about who the White Cloaks are. These are the children of the light. Now, normally, when you hear that term, you think good guy, because in this cosmology, you have the shadow and the light. And the light is on the side of the creator and creation and goodness. And the shadow is on the side of the dark lord. But the children of the light are kind of their own thing. This is a para-national organization. This is not beholden to any king or queen. They are essentially a theologic organization that are intending to serve the light militarily. It's almost like the Knights Templar. This is an order of monks that serves their Lord Captain Commander, and that is it. And they believe it is their duty to spread the light and destroy shadow. But they get to decide what that means. They get to decide who's walking in the light and who is not. And what that means is they don't get along with a lot of these governments. So the governor of Baerlon has actually put a lot of really strict regulations on them because he doesn't like having this paramilitary organization that he doesn't have any control over within his boundaries. The Children of the Light actually have entire armies, entire legions that they can send out. And so they are a political force, but in these small groups, they are very dangerous, and they are convinced of their own self-righteousness and their own correctness in terms of what is light and what is darkness. And so in their view, even somebody laughing at them is clearly a creature of the shadow, and they are justified in doing whatever they want to them.
They're one of my least favorite factions in all of these stories.
They're
because
awful.
They have power and money and authority, and it's arbitrary. They can just decide who is good and who is bad based on whim.
And it's self-righteous.
Mm-hmm.
It's the hypocrisy of it that just, they should be so much better. Because again, they acknowledge these ideals. They have this founding book. They had a founder that they reverence, but they fall far short of at least what those ideals are listed as. And they're usually just terrible.
Yes. Very angry almost all the time and brutal. So Rand was laughing, and it said that his laughter's cut off short. He and the children were alone with the mud and the barrels. The crowd that had been all around them had found urgent business up or down the street. That was just Rand looking at these guys who get to decide if he's good or bad. And they're like, does fear of the light hold your tongue? Because he doesn't respond right away. Clearly you're evil because you were laughing at us. I mean, it was a prank. It's just not pleasant maybe, but surely not evil.
Mm-hmm.
But here Rand gets a little, what's the word?
Arrogant.
Arrogant.
He is flat out arrogant
And
towards
rude.
them. He pulls himself up and he goes toe to toe with these guys. Rand is also wearing a Heron Mark blade, and one of the White Cloaks sees it.
He pushes back his cloak so they see it. I mean, he is being really bold here for a kid who doesn't even know how to use it.
No. And what does the leader say? Something like, "Are you so dangerous?" There is a fight about to go down here. But the White Cloaks are actually kind of scared of him. The leader, not so much. He is so consumed by his hatred. But the others are like, watch it. That's Heron Mark. And Rand is just owning this. And then, fortunately for Rand, the city guard come by about this time. Remember, the governor is controlling this, and the governor is not going to allow them to fight in the city if he can catch them. And so Rand is able to get away. Mat has been watching this entire thing and can't believe what he's seen. I mean, he says, you accuse me of being insane, right? I mean, Mat's the one normally getting into trouble. He would never have done what Rand just did.
Yeah, Rand has these moments of almost madness, hysteria. It describes the tingling feeling where he just feels invincible, like these bubbles going to his head and his skin prickles. Like he felt that as he was looking at Egwene and Bella on the horse, and he just feels it. But then he's deflated after. It ebbs away from him, and suddenly he realizes, what did I just do?
Right. Rand is having kind of a hard day because there's one other encounter he had actually before all this as he's leaving the inn. Remember that Moiraine wanted to talk with Min if she was still around? Well, Rand is trying to get out of there, and this girl with short hair dressed like a dude kind of corners him and starts talking in weird ways and saying strange things to him that he doesn't like and doesn't understand. And so he's had just a bizarre day.
Yeah, she's funny. He asked her, like, can you channel? Like, is that what this is? Because she sees things. And she's like, no, I don't really know what it is, but Moiraine knew about it. Min can see basically foretellings about individuals or groups of people.
So this goes back to that pattern we talked about. So the wheel weaving the pattern of the age. And so Rand asks her what she can see, and she says, all sorts of things, Min said, with a grin as if she knew what he really wanted to ask. The war, Master Andra has 7 ruined towers around his head, and a babe in a cradle holding a sword, and she shook her head. Men like him, you understand, always have so many images they crowd one another. The strongest images around the Gleeman are a man, not him, juggling fire, and the White Tower. And that doesn't make any sense at all for a man. The strongest things I see about the big curly-haired fellow are a wolf and a broken crown and trees flowering all around him. And the other one, a red eagle, an eye on a balance scale, a dagger with a ruby, a horn and a laughing face. There are other things, but you see what I mean. This time I can't make up or down any of it.
And she throws those out all the time. And he's like, okay, none of us know what any of those mean. If you've read the series, though, this is the first book, book 1 of 14. So many of those are completed and fulfilled, and you know what they mean by the end.
They actually all come true.
You checked?
Yeah. And then he asks, well, what about me? Her grin stopped just short of outright laughter. The same kind of things as the rest. A sword that isn't a sword. A golden crown of laurel leaves. A beggar staff. You pouring water on sand. A bloody hand and a white-hot iron. 3 women standing over a funeral pyre with you on it. Black rock wet with blood. Not cheerful.
Yeah, he does not like this. He runs away, but she's laughing. I mean, this is normal for her. They just pop up.
Sometimes she knows exactly what it means, and when she knows, she knows. Mm-hmm. It always happens. But more often than not, she doesn't.
Glimpses.
A glimpse of the pattern, but what it actually means, she doesn't know. But she references one other thing she sees that she doesn't tell him. She refuses to tell him, but it involves her. And she says she doesn't normally see things about herself, but in this case, she does. And so Min is mysterious.
I'm just amazed that at the beginning, he can put all that he already knew. The author already knew that all those aspects were going to be in there. That's not 1 or 2. And not just about a character, about all of them. Because she mentions Egwene as well. Like, yeah, she's part of it too. She sees these sparks that they're all connected. It's really interesting, but we don't know what it means yet.
And so this is Rand's bad day. You know, he had a horrible dream. There's the rat with the broken back. He met Padden Fane, and it was just strange. He met Mat, and they got into trouble with the White Cloaks. He's now got a horrible headache and just feels sick and scared. He's got these prophecies around his head with blood that he doesn't like. And then they bump into Tom. And they decide, I think we need to tell Tom at least. And so they do. They tell him about the dreams. And Tom thinks about it And they start on their way back. And actually, this is when they bump into Perrin.
Perrin comes running out of the inn.
He's got like, news.
You guys, the wisdom is here. Nynaeve followed them. This should not be possible. Lan, the guy who's amazing in the woods and like has everything hidden down to the firewood and like concealing their tracks, she followed them. And they say, oh no.
They all wonder how she got the ferry guy to get another ferry to get him across. She's a powerful woman.
A force, I'm telling you. A force. She's come to bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
She does not approve that they have run off, especially when they left notes for their family. And it describes the icy chill in the room where Nynaeve is sitting across from Moiraine at a table, and it is silent. These women do not like one another.
No. Finally, I think Rand sits down first. He tries to find a spot sort of halfway between them, so he's not taking sides. All the others sit down. And
wait. I like the phrase, sometimes you have to grab the wolf by the ears, he reminded himself. But he remembered another old saying, too. When you have the wolf by the ears, it's as hard to let go as to hold on.
Yeah.
Trying to stay neutral here.
Rand does break the ice, though. He gets them actually talking. Nynaeve has been refusing even, a drink from Lan and Moiraine because she hates them so much and doesn't trust them. And there's this whole back and forth between these two women, which is impressive.
She's there to bring them back because she can't believe they left. And so here's where the boys in particular convince her that, no, it's for the safety of our families that we can't go back. We need to know why we're being targeted. And so Nynaeve becomes a part of this group, a very reluctant part, but she's there to defend her people.
Yeah.
She might yell at them, but she cares deeply for her local people. Her job as wisdom is to care for them. And she does love to heal and care for people. That is deep inside her. But she does create tension in the group. But man, as they're heading out, she says to Rand, hey, she's part of it too. There's sparks around her too. She also is part of this pattern, this weaving. So the group keeps building and they're all interconnected in some way.
Yeah. Which we don't know yet what that's going to look like, but there's time for that to develop. Well, they're still in the city and the inn. They spend another night at the inn, and this is just fun because Tom is up front and he is in his element. This is where we first hear about the hunters for the horn. The great hunt of the Horn of Valere, is this cycle of legends. The Horn of Valere is this legendary object that's supposed to kind of call dead heroes back from the grave to fight for the side of the light against the darkness. And so periodically throughout history, as the wheel turns, there have been these hunts for it, kind of like the hunts for the Holy Grail. And then stories have come out of that. So he's up there telling tales and singing about Rogush Eagle Eye and the hunt for the horn. And he's having a great time and people are loving it. He's also telling other stories, and these all come up again later. He talks about Leon's stand. He talks about Geidel Kane's sword, the last ride of the Blood of Albane. And so these are all stories that are going to work their way in. But then after a while, the stories end. He pulls out the flute and harp, and it is time for music and time for dancing. They love dancing in this series. Mm-hmm. Everyone does. And it's funny.
Yeah, Rand describes his fumbling feet when he dances with Moiraine. She's an Aes Sedai and beautiful and dances like a young girl, and he trips all over himself.
Yeah, apparently she's an excellent dancer.
Of course she is.
They dance late into the night. They have a lot of time, but there is this guy that seems to keep staring at them. He's got this scar over his face, and Rand feels bad for staring at a guy with a scar. It's not his fault he's got a scar, but he does seem to keep staring at them and they all notice it. But eventually they wind down and they all end up going to bed.
Oh, except Rand. He's downstairs. I think he goes to get a mug of milk or something. And a Fade, a half-man, approaches him inside the inn. I got the impression that they couldn't do that. Somehow they weren't allowed inside, maybe light would drive them off or something. But this one is bold enough. He does. he approaches Rand inside the building. And he says, "You are one of them, boy," in a hoarse whisper like a file softly drawn across bone. It's interesting. Even as Rand confronts this evil thing, it says it hurts to breathe. I mean, the hate coming off these creatures is palpable.
Mm-hmm. Later in this story, we're going to learn about a part of the world called the Borderlands. Where we're at now is kind of where humans live. There's also a part of the world called the Great Blight, and this is where the Dark Lord basically rules. It's horrible. But there's this stretch of land called the Borderlands that is between where sort of normal people are and where the Blight is. And the Borderlanders live their lives basically in combat with the Dark One and with these kind of monsters, these kinds of creatures. Because of that, they have a lot of experience with them, and there's a lot of sayings, that folksy wisdom. And one of the sayings in the Borderland is that the look of the eyeless is fear. So the Myrddraal, the Fades, they are the eyeless. They actually have no eyes in their face. But that look, that eyeless face, just causes fear in anyone they stare at. And he is staring directly into the pasty mega white face of a Fade.
He doesn't actually respond. Rand does not do anything. He's frozen. But Lan comes charging down the stairs, and the eyeless, the Fade, runs. The Fade is afraid of Alan Mandragoran. We learn that Lan is a king in the Borderlands. He is familiar with these, and Moiraine and him, their bond and the channeling of the power, they can feel to some extent the presence of these evil creatures when they're close enough.
Mm-hmm.
This one's in the building.
Mm-hmm.
But Lan comes down and says basically, "Where is it?"
Yeah.
And that's when Rand draws his sword.
Too late.
But he doesn't put it back. And it helps him feel better. But they leave that night. Okay, the bad guys have caught up with us. We're leaving now.
Mm-hmm. And so they do. They sneak out and they work their way. But they're in a town now. This isn't just a village that they can leave through the streets or between the houses. There is a gate and there is a guard on this town. And they start approaching this gate. And the governor has given orders that no one's supposed to come into this gate after the night. You see here how sort of witty, persuasive, and smart the Aes Sedai are, because she says, "Well, did he give any orders against people leaving?" And the gate watch is, "Well, no, just coming in." "Well, see, no orders. Let us out." And it works. The guy goes to turn the gates. But remember the adventure Rand and Mat had with the Children of the Light. The White Cloaks are looking everywhere for people, and now they've got a grudge against Rand, and they are not going to let them leave. And they show up here in the middle of the night, and now there's a confrontation between our band of travelers, the Gatesmen, and the Children of the Light.
The White Cloaks say, "We smell the evil. We smell it and root it out wherever it is found." They're about to arrest these people. And here Moiraine says quietly at first, "You will take me to your camp, White Cloak?" Moraine's voice came suddenly from every direction at once. She had moved back into the night at the children's approach, and shadows clumped around her. "You will question me?" Darkness wreathed her as she took a step forward. It made her seem taller. "You will bar my way?" She goes full Aes Sedai here. Everybody else runs. So Rand and the boys land, and he leads them out. Moiraine uses her power and just grows into this giant force blocking the White Cloaks. It's so cool.
Lan gets everyone out. They get them all out the gate. Describes Moiraine actually stepping over the wall because she's a giant now. The White Cloaks are running in terror, but they hate Aes Sedai. They hate anything about the power. They will hunt Aes Sedai if they can. But Moiraine gets them out, and it is just an incredible showing of the One Power.
I like that the Two Rivers people after, they're like, "You were taller than a giant." And they're like, "Was I?" She doesn't respond about this at all. And she tells them, "The mind plays tricks in the night. The eyes see what is not there." This was some kind of illusion, but it had force to it because she was blocking swords in the night with her staff. So there's something tangible to it. It's not just a trick of the eyes. But I love that these kids who've never seen any magic of any kind, they are amazed and scared. Mm-hmm. But Egwene wants it. She's like, "I want to do that."
So now we have a group, but the group looks a little bit different because now Nynaeve is with them as well. Min is not. Min stays in Berlion, but the others now have Nynaeve with them as well, and they are on the road once more. And I think it might be helpful here to talk a little bit about what the goal is currently, where they're trying to go. They've started at Amon's Field in the Two Rivers, and they are working their way towards a city called Camlin. Camlin is a big city. It's one of the major kingdoms of the area, and this is where they're going next because the road through Camlin then goes to a place that we've only kind of briefly alluded to. This is the White Tower. This is the home of the Aes Sedai. This is Tar Valon. So the White Tower, Tar Valon, this is where Moiraine is taking the group. And so they are now on the Camlin Road, on their way to Camlin, before trying to turn to get to Tar Valon. And the journey commences, but they just can't catch a break.
So if you pick up the book, each chapter heading has an image, an icon, so you kind of know who it's about, especially as the group grows. Each of them kind of has their own little insignia. The bad guys also have icons, insignia, and this one is the Trolloc one. It's this skull head with horns coming out. So they're on their way towards this city to try to get to somewhere where they can find some answers. That's the idea of going to Tar Valon, at least for the boys. Because even in their dreams, Balsamon comments on Tar Valon and the Aes Sedai, and like, you think they are going to help you? So these are kind of the big powers, according to like good and evil in this is almost chess match, where it's the Dark One and Balsamon, the man with the fire eyes, and then the White Tower and the Aes Sedai who can channel the power, but they're not going to go crazy like the men who can do so. Mm-hmm. And so here, as they're traveling, trying to get there, we have the potential for more Trollocs.
They start to hear horns. Mm-hmm. There are horns, and Lan is very clear. Those are Trolloc horns because he knows. And they're wondering, why are they sounding so many horns behind us? And Lan, I can't remember which one tells them, but, well, it's obvious, right? They're trying to drive us. And then they hear horns ahead. There are Trollocs all around them. And you have this small group with just lines of Trollocs in front and behind. And you start to see the characters coming into their own a little bit. Moiraine is always just incredible on a battlefield. I mean, throwing fire and calling lightning and doing just amazing things against the Trollocs. Lan, always this whirlwind of death.
I want to read this because they are being hunted. They're being pushed. And he knows at some point that something needs to be done. They need more time. And he tells Moiraine, he says, keep them moving, Moiraine Sedai. I will return as soon as I am able. You will know if I fail. And he jumps on his horse and he rides off towards these armies of Trollocs all by himself. And she says after him, the light go with you, last Lord of the Seven Towers. So cool. He just got a title. We don't know his story yet because we learn it incrementally. But dude, he's so cool.
And he is the Lord of the Seven Towers. He's so great.
But they keep running. And of course, Lan comes back.
He does. A little bedraggled. He's had some adventures, but there are Trollocs and they're not getting away from it. And so this is where they fight. So this is where the villagers start fighting. And it's fantastic because he's got his battle cry for the Seven Towers. But then these Emond's fielders start screaming, Manatharid, Manatharid. And then out of nowhere, Mat shouts something that nobody understands. Cry ar Caldazor, cry an Elisende, al Elisende. As he's riding into combat, nobody knows what's going on here, but there's this whole battle. And the Trollocs don't really seem to be trying to kill the boys. They have what they call these hooks or catch poles that they're trying to like pull them out of their saddle. It's almost like they're trying to take them alive. Meanwhile, people are fighting everywhere. And then all of a sudden, this whole group of Trollocs just falls to the ground, starts like slathering and twitching and just stops doing anything important. The Fades, the Myrddraal, link themselves to the Trollocs as part of how they can drive them. It's how they can command and control them. They link them to their will. which as long as the Fade is alive makes them even more dangerous. But if you kill the Fade, it's like cutting off the brain. And then all of a sudden, these beasts just fall to nothing. And so, fortunately, Lan is pretty good at killing Fades. And so they're able to get out of this encounter.
You haven't mentioned Tom yet.
I haven't.
In a confrontation. So, Tom, the Gleeman, there is much about him. He's good at sleight of hand, but the man can wield knives. He's got all these knives hidden across in his patchwork cloak, and he always does it with a flourish. I mean, he has presentation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's great in a battle, in a tight spot. Like, he's very good with his knives. He's always sad when he loses some. He's like, oh, those were my second best. He would not lose his first best. That would be folly. Those are for, what are those for?
He's deadly with them. He uses them for all sorts of things.
But he never uses his first best set.
Well,
it's always the second best.
He never loses his first best set.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But they have this confrontation that, yes, thanks to Lan, who takes out a Fade. Killing a Fade is not the same as they do not die in the same way that a normal creature would. But the last king of the Seven Towers can take one out.
Oh, yeah.
But they're on the run. They can't stay on the road. They have Trollocs all around. They can hear the horns. There are more. This was just a small group that confronted them first. There's another place they can go, though. Yeah. It's off the road. Before
they go there, though, there is some teasing that happens between them. Were you shouting something before?
What did you say?
And Perrin's like, we have the right. We heard that Manetheren story. We can say that. But then, like, Mat is kind of freaking out because he talked in a foreign language, and Egwene could almost understand it. She's like, I think I almost got it. What was that? And Mat's feeling uncomfortable because remember, they don't know why the Dark Lord is after them. And if he starts doing something weird, that might mean he's the one the Dark Lord is after. And he doesn't even remember what he said. But Moiraine remembers. She remembers. She says, for the honor of the Red Eagle, for the honor of the Rose of the Sun, the Rose of the Sun, the ancient war cry of Manetheren and the war cry of his last king, Eldrine, was called the Rose of the Sun. And so Mat is pulling out of nowhere these lines in the old tongue from his heritage. It's striking. And Egwene could almost pick it up, could almost understand.
Yeah, again, this is a long book, so I can't comment on all the awesome stuff that happens because it goes thing to thing to thing. I mean, this is an action adventure. Moiraine does awesome stuff with the power. I mean, she's churning up earthquakes and taking out Trollocs, but they need to find somewhere to go. They're out there in the middle of nowhere, so they take off aside from the road and they go to a town, a city that Moiraine and Lan know about.
They give it a name. It was called Eredal. In the days of the Trolloc Wars, it was an ally of Manetheren. Later, Eredal died, and then this place was called by another name. What name? Moiraine answered as they rode into the city. Shadar Logoth, she said. It is called Shadar Logoth. This always reminds me of the conversation between Aragorn and Gandalf as they're leaving Rivendell about do we go over the mountains or do we go under into Moria? So Lan talks them into going here, but it is clear this is a dangerous place. It's the only place, and the danger outside is more, but Shadar Logoth. And the title of the next chapter is Shadows Waiting. That is what Shadar Logoth means.
They walk through this place, and it reminds me of The Magician's Nephew when they're walking through
Charn.
Charn, thank you. Because this place is run down. It clearly was this huge, grand city, but it's talking about broken paving stones and tumbled buildings. The stones are broken. But Lan wants to go here because the Trollocs wouldn't dare.
They're scared of it.
The Trollocs are scared of this evil place. Because, like I said earlier, there are different flavors of good and evil in these stories. It's one of the brilliant things he does. Trollocs are one kind of evil. This place is a whole nother. And Moiraine knows the story of it. And so there's some safety in that, where if you know how to navigate something dangerous, there is some safety there, especially if it prevents the Trollocs from finding them. That's the more immediate danger. So Lan leads them there, and they find this building that hasn't been touched in who knows how long. It's covered in dust. They bring the horses inside. This place is immense. And it's not used anymore. It used to be a wonderful place. But here they're at least going to camp for the night, and the Trollocs won't come in. That's what they think.
Yeah. And so they're bunking down, settling down, setting up camp. But Mat, he is always curious. He is a bit of a troublemaker. He didn't feel like he got to really explore Berlion. And this city dwarfs that little town. And so this is a chance to go see something. And again, this was an ally of Manetheren during the Trolloc Wars. And so he's wondering, maybe there's treasure. Maybe there's something left here we can have. And so he talks Rand and Perrin into going exploring with him. This is not a good idea. This is a city the Trollocs are scared to enter. But Mat, he's up for a good time. And so they start walking around.
To be fair, they tell these boys very little. And Moiraine here is tired.
Yeah.
She just did this immense thing battling Trollocs with these earthquakes and channeling the power, and it drains her body. So Lan is taking care of her. She's not focused on them. And these 3 young dummies wander off. Looking for treasure, maybe.
Shockingly, they find someone. A man stood in the shadows among the columns at the top of the stairs. He took a half step forward, raised his hand to shield his eyes, and stepped back again. "Forgive me," he said smoothly. "I have been quite a long time in the dark inside. My eyes are not yet used to the light." This man identifies himself. He gives himself a name. He calls himself Mordeth. And it's funny because then he pauses as if he expects a response. This reminds me of Kung Fu Panda on the third one.
Right?
Yeah. This guy's always upset. You haven't heard of me? Well, they haven't. But that's okay. He says that he's got a job for them. He's got loads of treasure. And if the boys will help him carry it outside of the town, they can have as much as they want.
He says he's a treasure hunter too. But he needs the help. So yes, if they assist, they get something for it. And they follow him. What are they thinking?
To be fair, once more, he does show them treasure.
Mm.
He walks them down to a room, and it is stunning. Perrin sees like a golden axe. There are jewels everywhere. There's gold everywhere. There's like torchlight flickering, and they are overwhelmed. And sure, they'll help him carry stuff out. But meantime, they're looking at this guy.
Yeah, Rand's like, there's something weird about him. Like he looks well fed. The word sleek about this, it's a sleek, somewhat overfed man with drooping eyelids that made him seem to be hiding behind something and staring. Really odd. I mean, in this empty city. But at some point they realize he doesn't cast a shadow.
The goblet fell from Mat's hand with a crash. Mordeth nodded, and for the first time his fleshy eyelids opened all the way. His sleek face suddenly appeared pinched and hungry. So, he stood straighter, seeming taller. It is decided. Abruptly, there was no seeming to it. Like a balloon, Mordeth swelled, distorted, head pressed against the ceiling, shoulders butting the walls, filling the end of the room, cutting off escape. Hollow cheek, teeth bared in a rictus snarl. He reached out with hands big enough to engulf a man's head. So this guy like swells up like this balloon and comes after them, and they start running. They get away from them as fast as he can and take off back to Moiraine and Lan.
The thing screams after them, though. You are all dead. They run faster. This guy is very effectively terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
But Mat, he's like, but the treasure, we can't just leave it. Perrin and Rand grab him and they go. They're running back to Moiraine. They get back to the building out of breath. This is scary, but on their way, they don't see the guy anymore, but they feel the Watchers. This prickling, they can tell that some things are looking at them. But once they get back towards Moiraine, her presence somehow provides protection. The Watchers like disappear in a blink. That feeling goes away in an instant.
I enjoy how each of the companions has their own thought. I mean, Tom just says fools under his breath. Nynaeve is more direct. You wool-headed witlings.
They're shepherds. Wool-headed. It makes sense. It's a sheep joke.
Yeah. Mat's trying to make excuses. You said it was safe. You said Eredal was an ally of Manetheren. Moiraine stepped forward so suddenly that Mat cut off with his mouth open, and Rand and Perrin pausing, getting up, halfway crouched on their knees. Trollocs, Did you see Trollocs inside the walls? They didn't say it was safe. They said that the Trollocs wouldn't follow them. Matt has no excuse, and none of them have an excuse for what they just did.
But Moraine has heard of the name Mordeth.
Yeah.
The boys hadn't heard of it. It says that she hisses when she hears it in fear. She hissed and grabbed Rand's elbow in a tight grip. Mordeth, are you sure of that name? Be very sure, all of you. Mordeth? And they say, yes.
And it turns out there's another story, because there's always another story. Eredal was an ally of Manetheren. It was somebody fighting against the Trollocs and the Dark Lord. But then this guy Mordeth came, and this was hundreds of years ago. When Mordeth came to Eredal, he had a different plan for fighting the Dark Lord, because this was originally a great city. This was an ally. This was a bastion of the light. But Mordeth would whisper, and he would indicate that, well, why don't we use the very techniques of the enemy against the enemy? And so in this way, they became more dark and more evil in some ways than the Dark Lord himself. And it worked. They were able to, defeat the Trollocs, and they were feared and are still feared by the Trollocs. But they also turned on everyone else. They became treacherous. They became evil. And the city slowly just died. It ate itself with its own poison. And it was Mordeth who did all this.
Yeah, it consumed itself. And if you're familiar at all with the Lord of the Rings and Wormtongue, this idea, it says that Mordeth whispered poison. And so this poisoning where no enemy had come to Eredal but Eredal. Suspicion and hate had given birth to something that fed on that which created it, something locked in the bedrock on which the city stood. So Mordeth now is the only one left. But he wants to escape. Moraine says that his goal is to escape this city, to release himself from this city. And the way that he could do that is for something from this city to be carried outside by someone else. He could almost embody an item that left the city walls. And I think it's Perrin that thinks, oh, he asked us to take treasure outside for him. They would have been that way, that mechanism that he was released from this evil place. His evil would be spread.
Yeah, they almost did it without even knowing. They were almost duped just because they were curious, because Matt wanted to explore.
Meanwhile, Nynaeve noticed that Lan's been gone a while. And as Moraine's telling this story about this terrible evil in the city, she's like, should we be worried about him? And Moraine's like, no, he's fine. She says, Lan will be well. He was pledged to fight the Dark One before he left the cradle, a sword placed in his infant hands. Besides, I would know the minute of his death and the way of it, just as he would know mine. They are linked. Mm-hmm. So we learn a little bit about the warder bond between Lan and Moraine, that they have an awareness of each other all the time, no matter if it's close or far. But Lan here, this is that Lord of the Seven Towers. He can be out in this evil city with Trollocs around and Mordeth and all these different things that could kill someone, but he will be well.
He is awesome. I love his character. He is so cool. But it doesn't take too much longer from this until he does come back.
So suddenly the warder trotted silently out of the darkness into the room. There are Trollocs inside the walls. They will be here in little more than an hour.
Whatever the Dark Lord wants with these three boys from the Two Rivers, he somehow got the Fades to push Trollocs into Shadar Logoth, this place that they didn't think they would ever go into and that they are terrified of. There is something huge going on here. And so now, not only have the boys woke up this Mordeth character, there are now Trollocs and Fades within the city.
It's crazy that these boys know that they're being hunted by these evil creatures. What about them is so compelling to make these creatures go where they've never, ever been willing to go before? The fear of it was too big. There's a bigger force behind it.
Yeah, because so far we don't see much from these boys.
No.
They haven't done a whole lot impressive. I mean, they're not bad kids, but nothing to warrant this.
But they do horse up because they cannot confront all these Trollocs. Like, these are what do they call them? The groups of fists?
Fists
of Trolloc, which is, I don't know, 50 or 100 in a fist. But they horse up to try to escape. And it's interesting as they head out because Lan and Moraine are up ahead scouting the path. And everybody else notices this tendril of fog creeping across the city road. And Moraine tells them to freeze.
Yeah, stop. Do not move at all. And this is where Nynaeve asks, what is it? The evil of Shadar Logoth, Moraine replied. Mashadar, unseeing, unthinking, moving through the city as aimlessly as a worm burrows through the earth. If it touches you, you will die. So this is what has consumed the city. Mordeth was the guy, but this is the power, this evil fog that just the touch of it will consume you and kill you. And now this fog, this ribbon of fog, is separating Lan and Moraine from the rest of the group.
So these boys have relied on Moraine and Lan to keep them safe. They go when Lan says go. They wait when Moraine and Lan go back to protect them. And here I think it's Rand. He's like, well, can you kill it? And I think Moraine says she can do a little bit, but the awareness, the attention that would draw using that much power, even if she were strong enough, it would bring everything evil down right where they are. It'd be like a beacon showing where they are.
So it's not possible. Moraine, there's one thing left for her to do. She points to a star. She says, look at that star. That's your guiding point. We're heading towards the river. There's a river past this town, and then we're all heading to the river, and from the river we can get to a place called Whitebridge, and from there we can get to Caemlyn. So do what you have to do to avoid this fog and the Trollocs that are in the city, and let's meet on the other side of the town. And that's all she can do. And at this point, they split up.
Yeah, I think the telling of the breaking of the group, the fracturing is very good because Lan and Moraine are separated. They cannot reach them. They go off on their own. The rest of the group is creeping forward, finding their own path, separate, away from this fog when they run into Trollocs. And it says like 6 different voices all yell, follow me, like come this way. So they just, I mean, it's a breaking for sure. They all run in different directions. And they are separated in this evil city with enemies around them.
Well, that's a pretty bad place to be. And I think this is an excellent place for us to pause on this episode. This is such a long story, and again, we want to do it justice that we're going to do this as our first 2-part episode. So we are going to end here, but before we end, I'm going to leave you with some of the prophecies of the dragon that are published in the beginning of this book. And the shadow fell upon the land, and the world was riven stone from stone. The oceans fled, and the mountains were swallowed up, and the nations were scattered to the 8 corners of the world. The moon was as blood, and the sun was as ashes. The seas boiled, and the living envied the dead. All was shattered, and all but memory lost, and one memory above all others of him who brought the shadow and the breaking of the world, and him they named Dragon. From Aleth Nintaran Alta Camorra, The Breaking of the World, author unknown, The Fourth Age. And with that, we'll turn the page, and we hope you join us for the next chapter.